It's a controversy-filled week this week with Bethesda's ongoing struggle after the release of Fallout 76, including its response to dissatisfied players and the bait and switch of a particular item in the $200 Power Edition of the game. And just what in the world is going on with this loot box situation? You'll have to chip in some real money for a chance to find out what else is in store for this week's edition of The Rundown. Just this week, Nintendo announced via Twitter that their Nintendo Creators Program, that is the program in which content creators have to sign up and submit their videos to Nintendo for approval to be able to monetize them on respective platforms while also making sure Nintendo gets a cut, is finally coming to an end at the end of this month. This means that they are opening the floodgates on content creators being able to monetize their videos featuring Nintendo's content, so long as they follow a detailed set of guidelines. In the announcement, Nintendo states that they want to make it easier for content creators to make and monetize videos that contain Nintendo content. The website for the program is set to be taken down in March of 2019. Honestly, this is the right move for Nintendo, and I hate to say it, but it took them long enough. The program itself was highly controversial to begin with and caused many content creators to up and abandon the idea of making any videos featuring Nintendo's content. When you break down the structure of what the program was, it was practically a racket, borderline extortion. The statement itself almost reads like an apology for starting it up in the first place. But come on, how many times has Nintendo ever actively come forward and officially apologized for any errors in judgment they've made? All this being said, I can honestly say I'm proud to see them taking active steps and catching up with the times. There's a lot of discord and discourse just about everywhere you go in regards to the not-so-pleasing state of Fallout 76 since its launch. The general opinion of the game thus far is that it's broken and, well, boring. Everything from terrible performance issues, both online and in-game in general, to broken NPCs and enemies and textures that stretch for miles on end, as well as lag that makes PvP practically impossible, and it's not even related to hackers all the time. The game's current state has brought out the anger of gamers everywhere, and has forced Bethesda to get out in front of this and release an apologetic statement on Reddit. We know you're frustrated and angry at the state of things right now, whether it's issues you're running into in-game or the lack of communication about fixes, updates, or news. We didn't want you to think the silence meant nothing was happening. We're sorry and understand that this was not the right approach, and we'll work to make a better bridge between you and the dev team at Bethesda Game Studios, the statement said. They also promised to step up their communication efforts with more weekly updates. To make matters worse, purchasers of the $200 Power Armor edition of the game that was said to come with a Fallout 76 themed canvas duffel bag found out that the quality of the bag itself was extremely lacking as to what was advertised in the image of the package. As it turns out, it wasn't the same bag at all, but a nylon replacement. When asked about the sudden bait and switch, well, let's just say an answer was rather difficult to come by from Bethesda. But the eventual statement from them said that the materials to create the featured bag were unavailable. So I'm of two minds about this whole thing. On the one hand, you have the gamer who went into this hoping for a great experience, being able to finally play Fallout with their friends and experience the vast wasteland together. And while the game itself is there and can be played, the overall verdict is that it just feels soulless. And most of what you can expect from a Fallout game simply isn't there, such as an enthralling story and NPCs that litter the world and breathe life into it. But you hear anecdotes from players that have sunk some time into the game, such as bugs that have existed since Fallout 4 that have yet to be fixed. And stories like that paint a picture of the amount of effort that went into the overall package. And then you have this duffel bag mishap that really screwed a lot of paying customers of the items they were promised. That's definitely not a good move when your reputation is already sinking. Customers have every right to be pissed, especially for that kind of money. On the other hand, you have Bethesda, who are taking the full brunt of the gaming community all around the world, while considering that they issued a statement before the game's release, warning everyone that it was going to be a broken mess at launch. And while they didn't mention to the extent to which it would be broken, it's generally impossible to know that offhand, especially in a game of that scale. In my experience, I don't know of any online game that launched with everything working as intended, especially one with as big of a fan base as the Fallout series. But again, the issue surrounding the Power Armor edition, really not a good look. And damage control will be out in full force at next year's E3, no doubt. On to more pressing matters. The FTC has officially begun an investigation into the highly controversial yet ever-present issue of loot boxes in video games and their relation with gambling. On November 27th, a congressional committee hearing was held in which the topic of loot boxes were brought up in a meeting. New Hampshire's Democratic Senator Maggie Hassan affirmed with FTC Chairman Joe Simons to investigate loot boxes officially. For those unaware, loot boxes in the case of video games are essentially crates that contain very rare items, along with some not so rare, where the player can use a currency in which to gamble for a chance to win one or more of those items in the crate. The more rare items having a much lower chance of obtaining than the not so rare. The most commonly used method of purchase is through a currency that can also be purchased with real-world money. Sometimes no real-world money is involved at all, and other times it's both real-world and in-game currency. Loot boxes are now endemic in the video game industry and are present in everything from casual smartphone games to the newest high-budget releases, said Senator Hassan. Loot boxes represent a $50 billion industry by the year 2022. She then went on to warn that children are especially susceptible to loot boxes as they are closely linked to constituting gambling. Countries such as Belgium and the Netherlands have outright declared loot boxes as gambling and have banned them completely. You know, it's about time. It's a shame that it took this long for the US government to get itself together and step in against the malicious practice that are loot boxes. And while loot boxes themselves may not be malicious on their own, it's the individuals behind them that make them that way. Loot boxes are advertised in games in a very aggressive and psychologically manipulative way to goad players into spending money on them. Sure, there are plenty of people that argue how harmless they are because they are optional, but the whole "it's optional" argument in all honesty is weaker than water. Because optional doesn't stop the easily influenced minds of children from seeing something in a game that they don't have and doing whatever it takes to get it. And from my experience, loot boxes tend to stir up three questions in the minds of kids that I know. What is this? Why don't I have it? How do I get it? What happens after that is dependent on how determined they are to get it. Simply put, in a perfect world, I would honestly like to see loot boxes eradicated from the industry. But in our not-so-perfect world, even if they do, they'll just come back in a new form. The FTC looking into it does not guarantee total removal. We could very well end up with a China situation where they are required to reveal the chances of getting items from the loot box via a percentage number. In the world of anime, Netflix has confirmed that they will be bringing the classic and influential anime Neon Genesis Evangelion to its streaming service, featuring all 26 episodes of the anime series, as well as its 2 feature films, The End of Evangelion and Evangelion Death True 2. The films are essentially the conclusion to the anime series. Not much for me to say on this one outside of me being excited for Netflix bringing my childhood to the service and allowing me the chance to watch it all over again and get terribly frustrated. Evangelion is a very confusing series as the core of it tends to dive into the terribly unstable mental state of its protagonist, Shinji Ikari, and their motivations more so than the catastrophic events that are taking place around them. And for God's sake, Shinji, just get in the robot. Please. And Netflix, can we not try to turn this one into a live action, please? Speaking of live action, Netflix has also confirmed that they're working on a live action Cowboy Bebop series. The series will be supervised and consulted on by the creator of the anime series, Shinichiro Watanabe. The first episode will be written and produced by Christopher Yost, most notably known for Thor Dark World and Thor Ragnarok. It was also confirmed that Sunrise Studio, whom worked on the original anime series, will also be collaborating on the live-action Netflix series, which has confirmed at least 10 episodes so far. I'm conflicted about this whole thing, honestly. I have a bit of a soft spot for Cowboy Bebop as it was a huge part of my childhood. What made it so memorable for me was the story, the genre-blending themes it touched on, and its animated visual style. Something that it loses when moving to live action. That said, I'm willing to give this thing a shot. While many Netflix originals have been hit or miss, many of them have actually been pretty decent. I'll hold an ounce of hope that this will be too. Also, hey, maybe consider putting up the original anime series on the service as well, Netflix? Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of The Rundown. It was a controversy-filled episode this week, but I consider this as a sign of much-needed change in the industry, and I can only hope the wheels are finally in motion to make things happen. But I'd like to know what your thoughts are. Do you think loot boxes constitute gambling? Should the FTC spur the government into action of making them illegal? What would you like to see from the live-action Cowboy Bebop series? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, or dislike if you didn't. Also, if you'd like to help support the creation of these videos, consider becoming a patron and get your name in the credits along with these fine people. As always, this is Corrupt One telling you to stay sharp, assassins, and I'll see you next time.